The following program contains graphic calls to personal responsibility. If you are addicted to the system, Randall may not be right for you. Check with your local welfare office.
Speaking the truth when others hold their tongues. Wrestling for justice with left-wingers and crocodiles. Resisting the temptation to keep the peace at any price. The only talk show host who writes his own theme music, Randall Terry.
Well, hello to you too. We're gonna have, as usual, a phenomenal program. Today's program brought to you in part by Al-Qaeda, graduates of the Muslim Brotherhood University, and by NPR, National Palestinian Radio. Hey, we're not Zionists, and we like that. I'm going to let my good friend Joey the Hammer have something to say here, and then we'll be back with a very intense program, starting with a martyr. Don't go away.
I have to admit, there are times that I wish I was on the outside. Then, of course, there are other times when I think to myself, I'm safer in here than I am out there. Got crazy people like Charlie Sheen threatening to kill people. What is that? Anyway, while I'm here, I get to watch a lot of television. So in addition to Law and Order reruns, I do watch a lot of news, usually Fox. I can't stand those destaduras over at CNN and NBC, whatever. They make me crazy. I've come to the conclusion that this nation is being run usually by criminals. And I mean that with precision. And so I thought to myself, if these wise guys, these crackpots, can run our government, why not me? And so I've decided to offer my name for the United States Senate for 2012. Now you may say, Mr. Hammer, how could you, as a convicted felon, possibly run for office? It is a valid question, to which I say this. The difference between me and these other destaduras that are in office right now is that I got my jail time out of the way before I got elected. Vote for Joey the Hammer.
Welcome to today's program, friend. It is Ash Wednesday. For those of you who see people walking around with dust on their head, it's a reminder. From the dust you came, to the dust you will return. It marks the beginning of the 40 days of Lent. It's a time when the Christian world contemplates their mortality and seeks to make their life a better expression of Christianity, with more devotion and love to the Lord Jesus Christ and to our fellow man, helping, reaching out to the poor and the needy in our midst. I pray for all of us that we have a very meaningful Lenten season, which will culminate, of course, with Easter. Let's go to our news. No comedy here today, ladies and gentlemen. Shahbaz Bhatti, the minorities minister in Pakistan, the only Christian to sit on the Pakistani cabinet, was gunned down, murdered in cold blood this past weekend. May he rest in peace. I'm going to play for you a minute-and-a-half clip of an interview that he did just a few months ago, in which he acknowledged the death threats against him and the likelihood that he would be murdered for his stand for Jesus Christ. Please watch.
Minister Bhatti, we forgot one question in the interview. Your life is threatened. By whom? And what sort of threats are you receiving?
The forces of violence, militant band organization, the Taliban and pro-Al-Qaeda, they want to impose their radical philosophy in Pakistan. And whoever stand against their radical philosophy, they threaten them. When I'm leading this campaign against the Sharia laws, for the abolishment of blasphemy law, and speaking for the oppressed and marginalized, persecuted Christian and other minority. These Taliban threaten me. But I want to share that I believe in Jesus Christ who has given his own life for us. I know what is the meaning of cross, and I am following of the cross. And I am ready to die for a cause. I am living for my community and suffering people, and I will die to defend their rights. So these threats and these warnings cannot change my opinion and principles. I will prefer to die for my principle and for the justice of my community rather to compromise against on these threats.
Thank you.
Mr. Bhatti's murder comes just a few months after the killing of Salman Taseer, who was standing against the blasphemy laws, even though he was a Muslim, standing against the blasphemy laws in Pakistan. Catholic bishops in Pakistan are contemplating whether to ask the Vatican to officially declare Mr. Bhatti as a martyr. I have to ask all of you to just stop and have what we might call a reality check. There are people in this country, misguided, some of them deliberately deceitful, who want us to believe that Islam is a peaceful religion. Now, without going into whether or not most Muslims are peaceful, because clearly the record would show that most Muslims are in fact peaceful. That's not the issue. Islam as a religion, Islam as a judicial code expressed through the Sharia law, the divine law, according to Islam. Sharia law, which is part and parcel of Islam, calls for the death sentence of those who blaspheme Muhammad. Please understand this very clearly. It is blasphemy to say publicly that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, born of the Virgin Mary, very God of very God, light of light, true God of true God, that he is God incarnate, and therefore that Muhammad is not a true prophet, that Jesus Christ is the only way for our sins to be forgiven and for us to be redeemed to our Maker. These words that I just spoke are blasphemy according to Sharia law. Sharia law is a part of the very fiber and fabric of Islam. You cannot separate Islam from Sharia law. Do you understand? Therefore, people who say that Islam is a religion of peace are either completely deluded or they are being deliberately deceitful. There have been Muslim moderates in Europe, professors, who sought to separate personal belief in Islam from Sharia law. And guess what happened to them? One by one, they were murdered for blasphemy. Because Islam, traditional, historic, Orthodox Islam, not radical fundamentalism, but traditional, Orthodox, historic Islam, does not permit for Sharia law to be separated from faith in Allah and faith in the Quran and the declaration, the Shahada of Islamic faith, that, and I quote, because I don't believe it, and I quote, "There is no God but God, and Muhammad is his messenger." If you try and separate Sharia law from that, you are, by definition, a heretic and a blasphemer, and you, as a moderate Muslim, are also worthy of death. That is what happened to Salman Taseer, the governor in Pakistan who was murdered a few months ago. That is what happened to the moderate Muslim professors in various European universities. And it just proves again that Islam as a religious slash social slash political ideology is not peaceful. It was born of the sword. It catechizes by the sword. It keeps its adherents in the faith through fear of the sword. And it seeks to subjugate and, if possible, obliterate all other religions by the sword. Either the sword of terror or simply the sword of civil government. I'm going to take a break. When we come back, a little bit of horrible news from NPR, and then we'll talk about the budget battles that are on the horizon. Don't go away.
Randall just left for a vacation and has been amazed at the amount of highway construction taking place high in the air. Will we be needing control towers to handle the traffic in large cities? Maybe even to the point of having holding pattern loops during those times.
Moments with Moses. You shall not see your brother's donkey, or his ox fallen down by the way, and withhold your help from them. You shall help him to lift them up again.
Welcome back to the program, friend. I would encourage you to go to terrycast.com if you want to see some archived episodes. And also, if you want to get on our free email list, we bring you political and intellectual and religious news that is far better than most of what you'll get anywhere online. How do I know this to be true? Hey, you know what? Test it. See for yourself. Let's go to NPR. Ron Schiller, president of the NPR Foundation, thought that he was having lunch with two Muslims that wanted to donate $5 million to NPR. Well, guess what? Instead of having lunch with a couple of Muslims, Mr. Schiller now finds himself eating a big, fat piece of humble pie. Is he joking? Yes, it may cost him his job. I hope that it does. I hope that it does. On tomorrow's broadcast, we will clip out a whole bunch of the segments. There's so much there. We did not have time to get it ready for showtime. We'll play it tomorrow. But in it, he calls you Tea Party people a bunch of scary, gun-toting crazies. Yeah. He talks about how proud they are that they're not out to vindicate Zionism. He does to the Christian right and to the Tea Party people what he fired Juan Williams for doing. So, NPR, what do we want to call you? Nazi Party Radio, or Nincompoop Party Radio, or No Brains Public Radio? What do we want to call you? We want to call you hypocrites, deceivers, fools. I mean, I feel like I could never run out of pejoratives. The end of the story is this, that they have been exposed. CBS News is running a story on this. You can bet over the next 48 hours, it will either explode a little or explode a lot. Now, Juan Williams has pretty good stock in the media world. And there was genuine consternation and quite a bit of outrage when he got fired for his comments about being afraid when he sees certain Muslims in certain settings. He was just honest, okay? Like you and I are honest over a water cooler conversation. Well, what Schiller said was that he felt that Juan Williams could no longer report objectively if he felt that way, all the while he is mocking and vilifying Christians and Tea Party activists. Mr. Schiller, Mr. Schiller, Mr. Schiller, are we to really believe that you can be trusted with the news? That we can believe you when you talk about the Tea Party and about the Christian right and about the Republican Party? Oh my goodness. By the way, just Google it. You'll find it. You can watch the whole clip. It's close to 12 minutes long. This man is a pompous, arrogant donkey. Okay? And I don't mean it in the democratic sense. I've got to take a quick break. When we come back, we need to focus on the budget fight, the continuing resolution, and whether or not Planned Parenthood will be funded, and what the pro-life movement is and is not doing to pursue total victory against Planned Parenthood. Don't go away. Ron, if you want to be interviewed on my show, if you want to be my co-host, you can come here and join me. We'll have fun. It'll be like Cheech and Chong. No, wait. I'll be the organ grinder. You can be the monkey.
All right.
Traitor like he is.
Lena Kagan. She's a baby killer of the first order. A little more, oh God.
Courage is rightly esteemed the first of human qualities, because it is the quality which guarantees all others. Sir Winston Churchill.
Welcome back to the program, friend. I have to tell you, last night I listened to a web broadcast that will go unnamed by some really well-meaning pro-life people who are out of their league, over their head, and frankly were embarrassing themselves. They had a young gal who was involved in college pro-life ministry who interviewed a couple of congressmen, including Mike Pence, concerning whether or not Planned Parenthood will be defunded in the 6-month or 7-month continuing resolution. She asked Mr. Pence, well, what does all this mean? And on at least 2 occasions she said, this is all so confusing. And basically she gave Mr. Pence a complete free ride, because Congressman Pence said that it's all up to the Senate now, which is simply not true. Number one, it's really not confusing. If you will become politically active, it's not that confusing to understand how our government works. Yes, there are points when there's all kinds of backroom deals being cut, but this is not one of them. All right? The simple matter is this. The House has passed a budget, or rather a continuing resolution, with an amendment from Mr. Pence that will deny all funding to Planned Parenthood. End of story, laugh here. The Senate is widely believed to say, no, we are not going to do that. We're going to restore funding. And so what does that mean? It means that the House has to hold the line and say, we're sorry, but you, the Senate, or you, Mr. President, you can't force us to spend money. The Constitution says that all spending bills must originate or start in the House of Representatives, where Speaker John Boehner is the leader and where Michael Pence offered his amendment. What that means is when the Senate says, no, we're going to give money to Planned Parenthood, the House says, no, you're not. And any final bill that goes to President Obama for signature has to have a majority of the vote in the House. So what that means is, if the Senate tries to put it back in, and John Boehner says, well, there's nothing we can do, well, then Michael Pence and Michelle Bachmann and Chris Smith, it's time to pony up and say, no, we're not voting for a continuing resolution if you strip out any of the pro-life initiatives that were put into the continuing resolution by this House. In other words, they hold the continuing resolution hostage up to and including a shutdown of the government. That's hardball. And that says, hey, babies' lives are worth it. We'll be right back.
A 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only look with your eyes and see the recompense of the wicked.
John Adams said, The true source of our suffering has been our timidity. Friend, if we're afraid to stand up for the truth, how can we be surprised when we suffer the consequences for our silence? By the way, a bit of quick correction there. The man from NPR, Ron Schiller, he's already gone from NPR. He already quit. So Ron, I'm offering you a position here on Randall Terry, the voice of resistance. Come on, be a co-host with me, buddy.